It's not even me right now. I'm just thinking of other parents who probably, work takes the most part of them, and then they probably just do other things.
Are a parent
don't have
who
time
is
to read.
constantly junking on social media,
Yeah.
you can't raise a reader, because that's not where people read. People actually read. Either you're reading ebooks, reading websites, informative websites, or you're actually buying books and reading, and then your kids will see you read. That's the most authentic way to raise readers. Now, I'm a bit lucky because I started my life as a journalist, so I write. And I've written at least a published book with few others coming. So my kids love to read my articles. So that became an incentive for me. So if you have a father who writes, and he writes interesting pieces, you want to read them. That's another thing. But your children need to know that you are a reader. Because there was a day they were asking me, Daddy, how do you write? I said, I write by, first of all, being a good reader. So writing is actually expressing what has gone in. And most often, it is things you've read, things you've internalized, things you've experienced. But most importantly, when you come into piecing the bits together as a writer, it flows from how well you've read. So when your child is asking you that they want to learn how to write, then you've caught them. It means they want to take it a notch higher. You can't be a fantastic writer without being a voracious reader. So that's a starting point. Secondly, you need to start early. We started quite early. When my kids were little, they were giving them gifts, birthday gifts, this pocket Bible, my word books, those word books. So those were gifts some of them got as kids, and we had to keep those books. I know my wife literally created a library in their rooms. Now, they've not started reading voraciously, but they wake up in the morning and they see books in their room. What do you do when you have books in your room? You read them. So that's another point where we made it. And then TV is a distraction for if you want to raise readers. That's the truth. Somebody's laughing. TV is a huge distraction. Now, why is TV a distraction? Two things. First of all, it minimizes your ability to interact socially. So you have 4 kids in the house. They are all glued to TV 24/7. When will they have time to engage and discuss? But if you can take away the TV, first of all, the fourth party, assuming you have 3 kids. If you have 2 kids, that's a third party. That's one child that they all be watching. So when you take away that TV, that's a distraction. So something, you've taken out the distraction. They need to pay attention elsewhere. So where is that attention going to? They want to go to their tablet or phone. If you don't have that, books. Then this is what we've got now. So how do you share your experience from books? How do you make them fall in love with books? Which is what we're now. 2 things. I told my kids that when the guys who read open their mouth, one of the things you likely learn is that they are dishing out facts, knowledge. They've read it. One day I was discussing with my son. I said, do you know anything about ego? He said, not really. I said, okay, go and read about egos and then let's meet. Do you know, he spent a few minutes, some hours reading up about egos. And then when we started having conversation, guess what? He had so much to say. I said, this is exactly what happens to readers. They've gone to read. They've acquired knowledge. And when they start to talk, you shut up because you don't know what they're talking about. So for you to be at the same level with them, you need to go and read what they've read.
Sorry, I just want to ask a question here because you mentioned about TV now, right? Yes. And the truth is, using myself as an example, there's just some things I actually learned on TV, not necessarily reading now. And you talked about facts. There's some facts that parents can actually get, or children can actually get from actually watching some things on TV.
Yes, you can. But not everything is on TV. And then sometimes what is given to you on TV has been filtered. It's what they want you to get. What you want can be given to you on TV per se. It's not everything that's on TV. And it's blinding. You can't find those information on TV. So you watch, let's assume you watch, you're watching one channel that is by a cable TV, right?
Yeah.
That's a very popular channel. And you're watching, what are you getting from that channel? Dialogue, interaction, drama. But the day you want to read about oxymoron. You want to read about geology, seismic blasting. You won't get it on that.
But we can get on another channel. It might not be the children's channel in quote.
Good.
It could be somewhere else.
Fantastic. So when you get it on that channel, they've given you the snackable version of it because it's TV. Now you want more. Go get a book. You understand? Go get a book. And then you want to write. That's another level. You need to read. So oftentimes when you're watching content on TV, your mentality is not contributing to it. Your intellect, it's been served. So you take it hook, line, and sinker. But when you're reading, you can interrogate what you're reading. You can go to the dictionary, check it out. You can check the thesaurus. You can check the encyclopedia. You can even ask your parents. And you, Daddy, I was reading this and I saw. So you get the point. But TV is not, and TV is transient. You miss it, you miss it. But with books, you can refer, you can research. There is the rigor that comes with reading and the discipline also. So the child is involved. And don't forget, Chiwete, the man who has written that book is an intellectual, isn't it?
Yeah.
Also, it seems. For you to operate at the same experience that he has operated while writing that book, you read the book. So if I want 5 years of broadcasting experience and you guys are writing a book, why would I have to go through the broadcasting experience? Let me read this book. When I read this book, at least the 5 years you guys put in that book, I can gain 2 years. It doesn't happen on TV that way. So that is what your kids gain. So they have a leverage. They have a head start. That's why they say the person who reads, the person who cannot read is better than the person who do not read. In other words, the person who cannot read is blind. But the person who do not read is obviously not blind, but is
you can't see.
He can see still. So you help your kids to open their eyes and then enroll them in library clubs. I worship in a church where we have a book library club where children can borrow 2 books a week, and you just register for a pittance, and then you have access to 52 books in a year. Kids are always there reading, and then you also create an incentive. What do I call it? Okay, you want us to have a lunch? Okay, these are the books I need you to finish reading. Some kids would devour those books just to have that lunch. So tie reading to something they find really fascinating. And then for those who are teachers, if you have a boy in your class who this boy, there are certain things he churns out way beyond his age, and you find out the boy reads, what you do is use that boy as a poster boy. Once in a while, call him up and say, so John, what have you read last? What are you reading now? Say, I'm reading Chimamanda's. What? Talk to me about it. And you push the attention on the boy. So if you want to be like this boy, go and read. And we showcase you. So that way they learn to experience.
All right.
The boys experience.
Okay. Still parenting today. I'm still have Uncle Kingsley here in the building. Let's just take some messages from our sponsors. We'll be back after this.
It's morning radio with an exception on City 1051 FM, your number 1 lifestyle station.
Okay, so Uncle Kingsley, what else?
You need to let kids also know the consequences of not reading. You see, the man who reads will collect your money because you're ignorant. You know those days when this motivational thing started, people will buy motivational books, read them, and organize a seminar. And you who can't read that book, you pay to attend the seminar. That's the price for ignorance. That's just one of the price you pay. That's not the real deal. The price you pay is that you have a solution put in a book, but you keep paying people to come and solve that problem for you. And oftentimes, you're going to pay much more than what the book cost. One thing I told my kids is this: I wouldn't have been able to know the things I know now if I want to live it out. In other words, experience is not always the best teacher, especially if it has to be your own experience. So how do I leverage on people's experiences? For instance, why would I marry and watch the marriage crash when somebody whose marriage has crashed has written a book about how his marriage crashed? Why can't I read that book and avoid what happened to him? That's what happens. So if I want to experience what that guy experienced, it will be too expensive.
Yeah.
And I won't have the time to write a book about it because I'll still be bitter. Now, somebody has built a fantastic business. He's doing well. He got his fingers burnt. And then he wrote the book after 15 years of running that business. Dude, why do I want to run a business, ground it, only to learn how to run a business or how not to run a business? This guy has done it. I want to read his experience. He's put it in a book. The book costs 5,000 naira. Why should I burn my fingers, crash my business, only to learn the lesson?
To learn what you could have learned by reading.
Exactly. So that's how some of the things you need to model to your kids. And then there's this one I consider very, very interesting. Now, you have kids and you want them to read, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. But you see, your child actually have learning disabilities that makes reading difficult. You can excuse all of that. So for those kids, you get them audiobooks. We have quite a lot of them. And then you can also read
to them.
That way, they start to create that hunger for books. You know, I have asked kids to go get me something from a book I know they would never be able to suspect that thing is inside the book. And they got that in, and it was another experience. I said, this is the way life works. Sometimes waiting there for
Sokoto.
Day for inside Sokoto. You get it. It's in the book. Just open it and then find these nuggets that can make all the difference, in your life. So that's another side. And then lastly, if you find your child has an interest, for instance, a girl who may never read a Chimamanda's book will read a book on fashion and bead making. The girl might want to read the biography of Mary Kay if she's a fashionista and she's interested in makeup and she wants to build a business around makeup and all of that. And Mary Kay has done so well, and she's written a book, or somebody has written a biography. You might want to say, you love makeup, Abby. Do you know you're sitting on a $1 million? Say, Daddy, I know. But have you read about the most successful businesswoman who has made a lot from makeup? Who is that? The same Mary Kay you are using. This is her book. Go and read it. And that could just make all the difference. And then start by giving them snackable books, not those voluminous
books. Yeah.
Yes. Find out there are books that are just a chapter is less than 5 paragraphs. But they have so much nugget and information. You don't give them this book by there's this book on Steve Jobs. No, somebody will take off. When I wrote my book When Fishes Climb Trees, I took into consideration people who love snackable books, books that you don't want, and then authors also need to understand that we need to encourage people to read. So when you're writing your book, please take note. There are people who are still, moving their baby feet with regards to reading. Write in a way that is seductive, that is compelling for people to enjoy reading. And then let the design of the book be beautiful, appealing, sort of sexy, so that someone who is looking for an excuse not to read won't find any, because you've taken all of that into consideration. And then illustrative books, they help a lot. The Diary of the Wimpy Kid is a good example. It has good narrative, good character, good drama, but it is also an illustrative content.
I like that you touched on authors' role in encouraging children to read and people to read generally. And I find that sometimes some people, the way they write is not very easy to digest the information.
Some are reading for them, writing for themselves.
Exactly.
You see that a lot.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. Thank you so much, Uncle Kingsley, for coming through, and of course enlightening us on the importance of making our kids and our children read. There's one thing I've picked up from this conversation is, if you want your child to do something, you have to be the one doing it first up, so they can emulate you.
But the TV will remain a distraction.
Yeah, you have to get rid of
TV is, you can't raise readers with TV everywhere. It's not going to
Perhaps
happen.
they should reduce the time.
I actually
not
want
that you don't
even-
read, not that you don't watch at all.
No, they should watch. But you need to create reading time. And don't forget, you can't watch TV every day of the week and, so to speak, and find book interesting. I don't know. Rex, those days, TV wasn't this distracting.
Because it wasn't really
there. I want to take it back to, from reading all them Enid Blyton books and all of that. When I got much older, I think I was in secondary school. So when I come home and all of that, and there's no power in the house. There's no power.
Yes.
I will now go to my dad's library and start searching for what to read. And I found one Wilbur Smith book. It was this thick. It was like a dictionary. And I started to read it, and I was like, I found something to keep me company. And I finished the book.
But today, when there's no power, children is like
they're almost dying.
They're almost dying. You want to put it on the gen, you want to turn
no
on
tab, nothing.
So
they feel like the world
it's
is
like
ended.
somebody is having a mental health breakdown.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so what made that easy for me was that there were books lying around.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that there are
Make
books.
sure these books are around.
Yes.
Living room, dining room, in the study, in their own room, everywhere. Let there be books.
All right,
There
will be books.
Okay, so for those people who want to check you out on social media to ask more questions,
I
your
am
handle.
at Uncle Kingsley on Instagram. Just add the Uncle to Kingsley.
Okay,
It's as simple as that.
Uncle Kingston on Instagram. All right, thank you so much. It's still breakfast in the city.